Hello, welcome to Studio One. If you like what you see, like and subscribe and comment. Of course, I'm a KTT1 person, so I kind of took it upon myself, like maybe past 2 months, to like really try to get like KT artists that I think are really good on the platform. So
Yeah.
thanks for getting on it.
Oh, no problem. I'm always down to talk about my craft. So,
Perfect. Um, Before we really begin, can you just like briefly introduce yourself and then we'll get started?
um, I'm Chloe Hotline. I am a singer. I am a producer. I am an engineer, and I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio.
All right, perfect. Before we get into the music, with quarantine and COVID and things like that, how have you been? I know I've been doing Zoom interviews for like a year. Toronto's kind of getting better. How has it been over where you're at?
In Cincinnati, when it comes to like COVID stuff, like we'll have spikes, and then we'll have times where shit will be down. But anytime it spikes, like did something big, and everybody is back in the house. But through the pandemic, like a lot of artists that I know, like their careers kind of got muddied because of the pandemic because they were relying on live shows. But
Yeah,
I've actually seen a lot of success and a lot of more support during the pandemic, and even a year later till now, I put out my projects. So
yeah,
it's been pretty all right for me. Just indoors, staying safe, creating, you know.
yeah. And going to like the early roots of it, everybody loves music.
Yeah.
Whether it's playing in the house and things like that. What age did it like become more than a hobby? When were you like, you know what, I'm gonna dabble into this, and like, were you showing your friends like, hey, like, I'm taking this seriously? Like, how did you kind of navigate that before you really started releasing music?
Okay, so so the crazy thing about me is I've been writing and rapping and stuff since I was like 4. Like my nickname in the family was like Kai Rapping because I was young and that's what I wanted to do. But I recorded my first song when I was 6, and I was like, yeah, this is at my cousin's house in Detroit actually,
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So from there on, I was just like making music. And at the time, when you're young like that, kids aren't like other kids are really gonna be like, oh, you're doing this. Like I'm like playing with blocks. Like
yeah,
I'm actually playing and you're over here like making music. Like that's crazy. So I wouldn't be able to relate to other kids as much. But that's pretty much how it got started.
yeah. And who were like some of the artists, I guess, at the time and when you were getting older? Like, who were you looking up to and kind of like fantasizing, like, that's kind of the it's like how I want to navigate things. Like, who are you kind of influenced by?
Um it started off with just being Kanye, like just like because when 808s and Heartbreaks came out, that was like the first album that I love and that I remember like the rollout and everything. I was so young at the time and it just blew my mind. Like so Kanye was first, and then later on when I was like 8 or 9, I found out about Tyler. And that's somebody who I take from like a lot when it comes to just overall being a creative, not just a musician, but being a creative. So when he came out, I was like, what? Like he's literally me. Like
Yeah,
what? And I could always relate to his music. And then um middle school type, like middle school, I was starting to get into more of like the SoundCloud type sound of the time. So like the McConans, the Key, Father, OG Mako, like the whole Atlanta kind of
yeah,
2015 run, like Young Thug. Um, and after that, I've just been building from those early influences and going back to songs when I was young that I liked to see and to see what I like about them so I could capture that in my own music.
yeah. And playing, your music. I think you started officially releasing, at least on Spotify, back in like 2018. When did you feel like that was the time to like officially release? Because I know a lot of artists that I've talked to and kind of seen, a lot of them will release like songs on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
It's kind of this thing where like I'm not going to release on streaming platforms until I feel ready enough. Like, so for you, why was like 2018 the time to start releasing singles?
Um, well, before that, like I come from the era of dat piffs and live mixtapes,
Yeah,
mixtape sites. So I have several other eras of me making music where I thought where streaming wasn't a thing yet. So
yeah,
I thought my first official thing to the world was me putting my tape on dat piff, from me putting my tape on live mixtapes. But um 2018, that's when I figured out, like, because I was wondering for years, how do I get my music on Spotify? That's when I went and did the research. And yeah, that's when I did the research, and I ended up signing up with this distribution service called Amuse. It was free at the time. It's not free
yeah.
anymore. But I ended up signing up on Amuse, and I put out this song. I put out a lot of one of the songs that's still up, Vanity Hurts. That was, yeah, that was one of the first Chloe Hotline songs. Like right when I changed my name and right when I was figuring out who I was as a person and everything identity wise, that was one of the first pieces of music to come out from the Chloe Hotline era, officially on every platform.
Yeah. Do you feel like that song in particular was kind of the first time you felt like I know what I'm doing now, kind of, and it kind of helped you along? Like, was it that song or was it any other song leading up to? I know you just released like an album, but you released one
Yeah.
prior. Did that song that you're talking about just now help you along, or was there
It
another
was
moment?
it was that song let me know that I was getting good at music, but I
Okay.
still wasn't good enough yet. Like I knew, like, to make a lasting impression on people, I still had to be better. So that song, like, it did its little like 50 to 100 views or whatever. Like that was a good stepping stone, but I didn't really have a breakthrough to where I was like, okay, music is my thing now. I didn't really have a breakthrough until this past summer of 2020, when I a couple of months after I released my mixtape last year, Cynthia, which I disregarded after it came out. I thought it was a flop. I disregarded it completely. But I shot a video for one of the songs off of that project, and then that's when I started to get blog coverage, and then they started Bandcamp Fridays, and people were
Yeah,
buying my project then. And then like that project had a lot of success after, but the original impact of the Cynthia mixtape was like nothing. So
yeah. Do you think like because I read a quote a long time ago, like Joey Badass. He talks about like I don't like telling my fans like when I'm gonna release music or things like that, because like then there's this high expectation and you could always disappoint. Do you feel like with your music, you're like your hardest critic in terms of like if when I release the music, I really want like X, Y, and Z to happen, and because sometimes I can take away from like the music itself. Like, how do you balance those two things?
I am most definitely my biggest critic. Like I'm most definitely my biggest critic, but I don't let it, like, I know it gets to a point where I should just stop changing things. Like this project that I just put out, Instinct, I tried to work on it till like the last hour to put it on streaming, but I
Yeah,
told myself, no, I'm not gonna do that because that's gonna fuck up the rollout and everything's gonna be out later. So I stopped on January 10th. I stopped myself. I was like, okay. And then I just shut myself off completely from that project and started working on other stuff just to keep me busy in the meantime. So
yeah. Do you think now like thinking about it like that, you now look at other artists and then you can kind of understand them saying, "Oh, I'm still working on it. Like it's not done yet." Like a Travis Scott will be like, or a Kanye will be like, "No, I'm still tweaking it." Do you now like see what they mean by that? The way you kind of look at your music?
yeah, and also they're like signed to major, so they have more wiggle room. They
Yeah,
have more wiggle room when it comes to distribution. Like it could be up in a night. I can't do that.
yeah,
I can't do that yet. So
yeah. So going from Cynthia to this new album, you know, what do you think you really learned from that release that made this release kind of better or helped you along? Because the space between the two releases aren't that big of a difference. So
yeah, March 2020 and February 2021. What I learned is, I learned that you should actually sit down and try to make a cohesive project, because Cynthia, that project, it's just a bunch of songs. Like it's literally just a bunch of songs. Like I was originally gonna like actually like work on it as an album, but then it got to a point where I was gonna put it out, and then I was like, it's not ready yet. I was gonna put it out on my birthday last year, but
Yeah.
I was like, it's not ready yet. So I kept going back and working on it, and the date I had was April 3rd, and then like I think it was March 13th, all the uncertainty of COVID. My brother was in the UK at the time, so I was kind of paranoid about that. Like, is he
Yeah.
like, what's going on with this shit? So I was like, all right, fuck it. I'm putting my project out on the 20th, a 1 week notice, and then it drops, and of course, nothing. So I learned how to build up an actual rollout with a solidified date and how to make an album sound like an album. Like this album, I feel like if you listen to one song, you have to go and listen to the others. I really tried to make this project feel like a movie, like one thing,
Yeah.
instead of just an assortment of songs, which was Cynthia.
Yeah. And with this record too, there's features from other people. And on the first song, Cynthia, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there was a feature on Cynthia. I think it was just all
Not one.
Yeah, not one. This one, like you said, you have merch and it feels like an experience. You know, talk about the features and talk about that whole idea. I know you kind of touched on it with the whole feel of an experience.
So on the first track, Is You Down, Malik, that's my brother. That's been my best friend since ninth grade. And he honestly is the reason why Chloe Hotline even exists. That man boosts my confidence up so much. He told me from the jump when I didn't believe in myself, he would always tell me like, you like are the shit. Like stop being down on yourself. Like
Yeah.
he has given me so much game, even though we're the same age. He's like a month older than me. He's given me so much game and just put things into perspective for me. I'm an overthinker. Like I'm definitely an overthinker, but he'll always tell me like, oh, it's not that deep. It's simple. And really like he was one of the only people I've been making music with for the past couple years or so. So him being on the intro, I was like, I definitely want him to crack off the album because he is the reason why this album exists. He's the reason why I had the confidence to pull these things off. So I definitely wanted him to shine. And then track two, Tallulah with Tip Mouse. Tip Mouse, honestly, she's like she's spectacular. Like me and her have an EP together and we're gonna do a volume 2 to that. We just have really, really natural chemistry, like when it comes to making music, like really good friend of mine. And I don't even remember how we met. Like I think it was just like a Twitter interaction or something. But yeah, she's really dope. And then track 3, track 4, track 5, Madden 08. Keyshawn, a friend of mine. He has his own label, Bellflower. We've known each other since like 2018, but we never worked on any projects. So me getting him on this was like, it was kind of almost like a trade-off because I was on his project too. But I was like, okay, I don't have a second verse for this. And this is like some down south like pimp shit. I want him on this. And then towards the tail end of the song, if you really listen, it's really low. That's my brother. He actually has a whole verse. But like the song was already done by the time, like, so my brother transferred colleges. He was at Virginia, but he came back to Cincinnati to go to UC. So he was living at my parents' home where I'm at for a couple of days. So he heard me playing the song. He was like, yeah, let me get on that. I was like, you're not even a rapper, dude.
Yeah.
But he got on it at the end. I think I'm gonna put the like extended version out with him on it. But yeah, he's really talented. He's a multi-instrumentalist, college football player. He's like a renaissance man for real. In the last feature, someone with Lyndon Rook. Lyndon Rook is somebody who was a fan of my music originally. And then I went to he followed me, and then I went to go dig, and I was like, oh, this shit is actually tight. Like, oh, what the fuck? And then one day we were in a group chat and I had someone over a different beat back in May. I was like, I need someone to do a guitar solo over this. And then they were like, "Oh, I'll do it," and I was like, "Oh, fuck, like really?"
Yeah.
So I literally got the guitar solo back at 5 a.m. like the next day, and then like I kept it for months and months and months and months and months, and the song kept changing. Like there's like 5 different versions of that song, like different beats and different, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that really stand out in your music, and especially in this album, is like the production. How important for you is that aspect of the music? Because it feels like a lot of weight goes into that. Because the production on like songs like Nova or like other tracks like Avoid, like the production is like amazing. Like it's like even when you listen to it, there's so much, you know, like thought into it. So like, how does production play a role in your music?
Um, Production plays a big role. I feel like production is the foundation for everything, whether it be drums or whatever. Like it's like I say production is like building a house in a way. Like you have your foundation, which is your drums, and then you have the structures, which is like the melodies and stuff, and then the decorations, whether it be like little sounds, little hi-hats, or little like vocal samples. So production is 100 definitely really, really, really important. When I started off, when I changed my name to Chloe Hotline, originally I wanted to be a producer, but nobody wanted to rap over my beats. So I just kind of had to do my own thing. And it worked out well. I've been producing almost as long as I've been rapping. I've been producing since I was 9. So that's about 10 years almost. So, and I just now got good. Like I've been trash for so people don't understand. I was trash for so long, and I just now got good. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's the good part too. I like like a lot of artists will like remove songs they did in the past to kind of take away from all that. But I always admire the artists that like keep it to show the growth, because like that's what we want to see as fans of the music. But yeah, no. One of the things that really like put me onto your music is like being on KTT. Like usually, you know, I don't know how long you've been on it, but usually when someone who's not a well-known artist puts music on, it's like creative showcase or like it's like no, get out of here. But
Yeah.
the way the platform has like supported you is like one of like I'm not gonna call it rare, but I don't think I've really seen that, which is like amazing. You know, for you, of course, releasing music, there's also like the nerves in that. But like, when did you feel comfortable enough to like try to release to like tell people on KTT, hey, I released music, can you check it out? Because that is not a forgiving, it's not a forgiving platform to be like, hey, this is my music.
Okay. I tried to do it on KTT1 in 2019, but nobody cared about my thread. That site was on its way out. So when KTT2 came out, I think it was either October or November of 2019, I made an account immediately, but I waited a few months to like post my music on there. Like I waited, no, wait. Yeah, I waited like a month, and I forgot, I don't know which song it was, but I posted it and people were like, oh yeah, okay, like this is decent. But it got moved to Creative Showcase. So
Yeah.
they weren't really fucking with me from the beginning. But over time, definitely I've just being on the site literally every day. Like if I'm not on Twitter, like I'm on KTT. So being on the site every day, being in the community and posting, not just posting my music, but actually posting in threads and posting my opinions on things, I think that won people over also. Like it got to a point where like I was like this past summer I would drop singles, and every time on KTT the thread would have like 100 replies or like 300 replies, like 10 pages, and I was like, wow.
Exactly, that's amazing.
But KTT1, that audience was definitely more fickle. Before I even had an account, I used to like lurk a lot. I know, and I know how that audience was. It was a little bit more unhinged. KTT2 was a bit more sedated, a little bit more like you can't just say whatever you want. So
yeah, because like on KTT, like yeah, there's like a lot of people that release their music and it's not really that great. But some people like you and like I interviewed Kaiba and like Haji, like some people are really talented on that platform. So it's kind of cool to see like I feel like it's a little bit more welcoming than it's ever really been before.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And usually when I get near like the end of my interviews, I'll like ask like an artist, tour dates or you got a new album coming out, like all these cool things. But COVID, slapped that question out of the park.
I am performing the album in full Friday, which is tomorrow, on Instagram Live.
Okay.
So yeah, that's like I can't like no, we can't do shows, of course. So I decided that at home I'm gonna have a whole set built up and everything, and I'm actually gonna like perform like I'd be performing at a festival or a tour date. I'm really gonna make it like I'm gonna make it feel like they're like people are there.
How have you been navigating that? Because I know a lot of people, I remember when lockdown first started. Like for me, it was last March. I don't know when it was for you. Everybody went live on Instagram, and it's like a meme. Like how have you as an artist been navigating that world? Do you feel comfortable like going on live and doing these performances? I know you're doing it tomorrow, but like how do you personally feel about this whole new way to adapt?
I feel very comfortable because even before this, like before the lockdown, I was not getting booked for shows. I was not I didn't really have any I didn't really do shows like that at all. Like I did one show in 2019 and I haven't performed. I haven't been to a concert ever since 2019, which is really weird. So I'm not really tripping. I know a lot of people who like having a hard time, but for me, it's just like typical stuff.
Yeah. On a final note, for all the people that will eventually flock to your album, what is the one thing you want people to take away from that album?
I want people to take from that album that I'm a great artist and my music my audience should be bigger. Like, how they'd be like, oh, I want this artist to blow up. Like I feel like this album should bring that effect, especially on certain like Potent. Potent is like my favorite song that I've ever made in my entire life. That's like my championship. That is like my Super Bowl ring. I'm so proud of myself for that song. I want people to listen to that and be like, this is the future. Like that's what I want people to get from this project.
Yeah, for sure. Again, really, really like your music. Glad we connected. Definitely always want to support KT. Been on that since the first version. So thanks for, taking the time out, absolute pleasure.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Studio One.